Applicant Summer Distributing LLC of Kingston seeks a rehearing on the decision to rehear an original application made by the Zoning Board of Adjustment at its December 9, 2021 meeting. At its October 10, 2021 meeting, the ZBA granted to Summit Distributing LLC a special exception to the terms of Article 201, Section 4E14 to permit a retail fuel outlet within the Aquifer Protection District Zone B. CW Station LLC subsequently filed a request to the ZBA that it rehear its original decision. At its December 9, 2021 meeting, the ZBA granted the rehearing, which was scheduled for January 13, 2022. At the January 27 meeting, the ZBA will discuss and decide the merits of Summit Distributing request. And in that gap, at the January 13th meeting, we continued the hearing to the February 10th meeting in order to adequately review the documents presented by Summit Distributing LLC to rehear the rehearing. And the purpose of tonight's session is for the board to review amongst itself the reasons why or why not we should grant the rehearing to the rehearing. No testimony will be taken this evening. You're welcome to hear what we have to say. We're glad to see we have an audience. That's great. But the actual hearing, well, anyways, we get to that anyways. So at this point, I'd like to open up the discussion to my colleagues. Okay, for anyone that doesn't know, my far right is Jackie Leone, Peter Coffin, Larry Greenbaum, our vice chair. Far left is Susan Era, secretary, and Chuck Hart, a member, and I'm Ellie Alessio, your chair. So, who wants to go first?
Well, as far as the rehearing that Summit has asked for, I have read the documentation they supplied, and I do agree with some of the things they said, but I don't think we have to go back to that. I don't think we have to rehear
The rehearing.
the rehearing. We will hear the rehearing that we have agreed to, and both parties will be present.
February 10th, yeah.
Right. And I don't think that there's a need, we can take testimony from both
That time.
at that time, and
Yeah.
we don't have to extend the process further out if we're gonna have a meeting and both parties are gonna be in attendance, we know that.
Correct.
I don't think that there's a need for a rehearing. I don't think that based on the information, it makes sense to rehear the same information from the same people. I think that it's best for everybody to hear them both at the same time in February.
That would be the rehearing.
Well, okay, that's what I meant.
Oh, yeah, when we use the term rehearing, it's a little confusing because
Yeah.
this is a rehearing on
On the rehearing.
Rehearing from December. The original hearing, which was October, we granted a rehearing in December for that.
We could keep on doing this for another year, I'm sure.
So when you're saying you don't think we need a rehearing, you don't think we need to rehear the arguments from December?
Exactly.
Okay.
No, I do not think we need to rehear those arguments. I do think that.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I make sure that we
Thank
are on
you.
the same page here. So. Yeah.
Well, I know we've all spent a lot of time in reviewing it.
Yeah.
I'd like to give a little bit of an overview of where I think we're at and what I would recommend that we do. Both attorneys from both sides of the issue have elegantly described the situation, and you can take a position either way, to be very honest with you. And let's take the notification of the easement holders. There's merit to say that they are an interested party. There's also merit to say they're not on the parcel being developed. And that's where the differences lie, and that's where I think the courts would come in. But be that as it may, we could have 10 attorneys in the room and have 20 opinions. Sorry, Rick, no aspersions on that one, by any stretch of the imagination. But as I said, both attorneys have eloquently spelled out the problems and the concerns on either side. I don't see any merit to rehearing the rehearing. I think, in effect, that the February 10th meeting should be a de novo hearing of the original petition for a special exception for Summit to locate the refueling station at the location of 125. Then it clearly gives the parties that were not heard in October an opportunity to speak, and it gives the petitioner the opportunity to reiterate their proposal, which convinced this board to support it unanimously. So, and maybe new things will come up. We've not heard, even the petition from CW Station to have a rehearing in December really didn't pro-offer anything new other than, well, there was two issues. One was the easement holder. And as I said, both attorneys have eloquently described the position on opposite sides of that equation. And I don't think we erred on that, although Mr. Greenbaum also eloquently described at the October meeting that the way if we were to truly research easement holders, you would almost have to do a title search on every applicant that came before us, and I do not see that as being the intent of the law. That being said, the other concern we have as a board is to try to be fair to everybody on both sides of the issue and to be clearly heard by both sides of the issue, so that should this end up in litigation, and God knows both parties have spent a lot of money on legal fees, it could very well end up there. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping we can work it through the process with one more try. And I think the courts, and it's been my experience in the past, courts look to see if zoning boards of appeal do its best to be fair, equitable, and have full opportunities to review and discuss the concerns by all parties involved. So that being said, I would recommend that we not rehear the rehearing, because otherwise we could go on ad infinitum, rehearing the rehearing. I don't want to do that. I want to get to the nut of the issue, which is to have a de novo hearing at the February 10th meeting and go forward from there.
And regardless of what the legislature's intent was, and I understand what the applicant is saying, but in order for them to make the point at least 4 times when they've quoted that, after saying that the CW added wording, in order to explain it, they had to add their own wording that's not in part of the legislation. So encumbering, they've added the wording, encumbering the land under consideration, which isn't in the ordinance. But every single time they explain it, what they mean, they've added that wording. Encumbering the land under consideration, meaning the subject parcel. If the legislature had written it just opposite, so that it said holders of conservation, etc., easements, and abutters to the parcel, it would have been clear, plain and simple. But because they chose this, abutters and, without any commas, the
easement holders go with the abutters.
Easement holder, it
Yes,
sounds
they
like
have that property, great.
they're a parcel. And so that has not been, as they've pointed out, there is no case law where the Supreme Court has made a decision on the intent of that. So,
and I'm hoping we're not the ones making the case law.
And I'm right, and we wouldn't be. My suggestion is, where confusion exists, the default position should be give it a go again. You know, so nobody is you can't follow that. The other thing is that we decided that was the only criterion we used in December when we voted for the rehearing, was because we hadn't had advice of legal counsel, we decided to push the issue of, what was the second issue?
Well, the second issue was the hydrogeologic.
No, sorry, the second issue was about, did we provide, were we allowed to tell the planning board, you know, did we have to create that, the additional restrictions per statute or, sorry, for the
Are you talking about the hydrogeologic?
No, not talking, we said, our ordinance says that we had to use additional restrictions, that we could grant an special exception if we did additional restrictions. Now, the question is whether we actually had to include restrictions ourselves or whether we could put that in as a condition. And we talked about it, and we stated that we felt it was a condition. However, we decided not to open the rehearing based on that, because if we could listen to the arguments on that when we went to the rehearing. So I think whether we not made a mistake or not on the intent of the legislature in that original thing, we made the decision. And I think it behooves us to go ahead with the rehearing in February, and then we can, the applicants can, and abutters can argue that point.
Well, one of the other issues that was raised was also on the hydrogeologic study. And I've been here over 20 years on the ZBA, and we have not actually had one conducted. We have deferred to the planning board before. And for a number of reasons. It's number one, it's probably the most appropriate. Our decision to have granted that special exception to allow that particular use on that property in no way means that they're automatically going to be there, because they still have to, any applicant, whether it be Summit or someone else, has to go through all the permitting processes, septic, water, all of that has to happen in order for them to actually get the permission to locate there. So by saying that we felt that they could locate there, it doesn't mean that they would locate there. And I think that needs to be stated clearly.
And the restrictions that may be required by the planning board, whoever, or the state, DES, to put that unit there, maybe make it a non-payable option for them. But that's for them to decide.
But remember, when we reviewed that originally in October, the water tables were very low. It didn't have any, that's why I think
But they say that it was sandy soil, which means that anything gets into it,
correct.
infiltrates and gets into the water table.
The potential is always there.
It is there, and so this is, these are, again, kind of planning board issues, but unfortunately our particular ordinance says that we're supposed to put those restrictions in. I felt we dealt with it in a way that would not make the applicant have to get the survey done and the engineer review and stuff, and then have us meet several times to listen to those people advise on that before we made the restrictions, because then they're going to have to do it all over again for other reasons.
And they may even have done one and not have presented it as yet.
Well, yeah, they said they were really willing to work with it. Even with us, they said they'd be willing to. And quite frankly, the requirement for the hydrogeologic survey was based on septic loading. That's not what was applicable in this case, because it was not a big septic system. What we have the option of requiring a hydrogeologic survey to find out whether the petrochemical contaminants would be infiltrated into the aquifer and or into the Little River. So
see, I thought it was a septic, because that was the whole point. It was the 2000 on
that's
Zone
for the
D,
requirement.
and this came in, I believe, at 1,000 feet. So let's
Yeah,
not go into merit. I don't think
okay,
that's
that's kind of the merit, but if we were to require that, we can require it still, even if it doesn't meet
correct.
the septic system.
In February, not tonight.
Because it's a different thing, yeah. So all those things are better discussed And when we get, and again, we can get legal counsel again on the question about whether we have to follow our ordinance to the letter. And I think you actually said,
Yes, and he said he felt that our procedure had been, was good, that we had followed the procedure accordingly. That's not to say we wouldn't change our mind and want to have a hydrogeologic study done before we made final approval or conditional on.
yeah, so that's all stuff that would come up in rehearing, so.
Correct.
For all those reasons, unless there's anybody else who wants to talk on this, I'll move that we deny the request for a rehearing.
To the rehearing.
The rehearing of Sheehan, who's the applicant here? Summit Distributing.
To deny the request for rehearing on the December 9th rehearing
Request.
Okay.
And then we go forth with it.
All right, second. Jackie did, no, Jack, okay. Further discussion?
I just had one, but that would mean on February 10th, then both parties would be here.
That's
Yes.
correct.
It would be
Basically, to
completely-
present the information and the hydrological and the.
Well,
Well,
any
may
other-
not be
No, that's up to
hydrogeologic,
us to determine whether
that's not, the issue is.
I
can
know
we
it's
go-
not the issue, but I feel like that's probably going to be part of the conversation that I'm more interested in on February 10th. That's why I'm asking, before I give my vote, I just want to make sure that on February 10th, both parties will
Good.
be here to present their case.
Both parties will be here to present again.
Okay.
I'm calling this in effect a de novo, which means literally a fresh start, a
Okay.
new hearing in effect. And if we still at that point decide we want a hydrogeologic study, we can continue the hearing until it's completed. So, I
Okay.
mean, there are other options, but tonight our purpose is, the motion on the floor is to deny the rehearing for a rehearing request by Summit LLC.
So,
Any other comments on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and so the request, sorry, sir, we're not taking any comments from the public, I'm sorry.
It's not a comment, it's a question. Would you entertain a few questions from me?
No, I am sorry, no. I'm sorry, I
This is a
cannot.
working session for us.
Okay, any other business? Is it clear that on February 10th, both parties will be present and present their positions for and against this proposal, correct?
Will we have to notify them?
Well, I'll have a letter of decision, and that will go out to Summit, and I will also send one to the attorneys representing CW Station. If there's a procedural question, I'd entertain procedural questions at this time. I think that's different than on the hearing.
That's what I was wanting to ask them.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, then I'll say, no. The question from Mr. Hart is, do we have to notify all the abutters again? The answer is no. They've been noticed that it was continued, and that's where we stand. So we do not have to renotice. The only thing that I will take care of is the notice of decision from tonight's meeting to both parties involved, to both attorneys involved. So if there's no other procedural questions from the audience, then I'll say the meeting is adjourned at 7:20.